Cradle of Empires, a history of the ancient Middle East from Sumer to Persia. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, known as Mesopotamia, holds the unique distinction of being the cradle of human civilization. It was here, over 5 millennia ago, that humanity first embarked on the grand experiment of urban living, kingship, and empire. This is the story of that foundational era, a sweeping narrative of innovation, conquest, and cultural exchange that shaped the ancient world from its birth in Sumerian city-states to its eventual unification under the Persian Empire. The foundation, Sumerian city-states, c. 3523-34 BCE. The story begins in the fertile south of Mesopotamia, where the Sumerian people laid the groundwork for all subsequent history. They were not nomads, but builders who gradually developed the world's first city-states, such as Uruk, Ur, and Lagash. These were not merely large villages, but complex political, religious, and economic centers, each with its own patron deity, ruler, either a priest, governor, or a king, and a society stratified into classes. The Sumerian genius manifested in a cascade of world-first inventions: the cuneiform script, initially for administrative records but later for literature and law, the wheel for transport and pottery, the sailboat for river trade, and advanced irrigation techniques to tame the unpredictable rivers. Their monumental architecture, the ziggurats, reached for the heavens, symbolizing the central role of the gods in daily life. To their northwest, in the region of Akkad, lived a Semitic-speaking people who were not outsiders to this revolution. They fully shared in the Sumerian civilization, living in similar city-states, worshipping the same gods, and using the same cuneiform script. The primary distinction was linguistic. They spoke Akkadian. This cultural symbiosis between Sumerians and Akkadians set the stage for the next dramatic act, the creation of empire. The first empire, the Akkadians, c. 23, 3421, 54 BCE. In 2334 BCE, a figure of legendary origins, Sargon of Akkad, seized power in the city of Kish. Being a Semitic speaker, he leveraged the support of the Akkadian population to defeat the Sumerian city-states, uniting Sumer and Akkad for the first time. Sargon was an innovator in conquest and rule. He founded a new capital, Agade, installed his own officials as governors, confiscated vast lands for the crown, and made Akkadian the language of administration. Having secured Mesopotamia, he embarked on campaigns of unprecedented scale, subduing Elam to the east and carrying his power as far as Syria and the Mediterranean Sea. He created history's first true multinational empire. His grandson Naram-Sin brought the empire to its zenith, reclaiming lost territories and expanding its borders. In a radical break with tradition, he declared himself a god during his lifetime. However, his death heralded the empire's decline. Invasions by the Guti people from the Zagros Mountains, combined with internal revolts, finally extinguished Akkadian power, plunging the region into a period of fragmentation. Revival and Reformation, the Neo-Sumerian Empire, c. 2112-2004 BCE. After nearly a century, the Guti were driven out, and a native Sumerian revival occurred under the third dynasty of Ur, known as the Ur-33 period. Its founder, Ur-Nammu, was a great builder and a lawgiver, issuing one of the world's oldest known law codes. His son Shulgi implemented a comprehensive reform of the kingdom, standardizing weights, measures, and taxation, and creating a highly centralized bureaucratic state. Like Naram-Sin, he claimed divine status. For a time, the Empire of Ur was the dominant power in the region. Yet this revival was short-lived. Pressure from Semitic Amorite nomads in the west and a devastating invasion by the Elamites from the east led to the sacking of Ur in 2004 BCE, ending the last great Sumerian dynasty. Fragmentation and the rise of Babylon. Sees 2015-95 BCE. The following centuries, known as the Eisen-Lhasa period, saw a fragmented Mesopotamia. During this time, Amorite clans settled and founded kingdoms, shifting the economic and political landscape. From this milieu emerged a small Amorite kingdom based in the previously insignificant town of Babylon. Its fortunes changed forever with the ascension of Hammurabi in 1792 BCE. Through a combination of diplomacy and military force, he transformed his small kingdom into an empire covering most of Mesopotamia. Hammurabi was the model of a Mesopotamian ruler, maintaining canals and temples, but his lasting legacy is his famous law code, a detailed set of statutes inscribed on a public stele to establish justice in the land. However, the empire unraveled quickly after his death, with the south seceding and the north falling to the rising power of Assyria. The age of international powers, Kassites, Assyrians, and Hittites, Sumerian 1595-911 BCE. A Hittite raid sacked Babylon in 1595 BCE, creating a power vacuum filled by the Kassites, a people from the Zagros Mountains. The Kassites provided 4 centuries of much-needed stability and peace, reuniting Babylonia and ruling within Mesopotamian traditions. Meanwhile, other powers were rising. The Hittites in Anatolia grew into a formidable empire, clashing with Egypt for control of the Levant. Most significantly, Assyria, in northern Mesopotamia, began its long journey to empire. After a period of weakness during the Dark Age of Aramean migrations, which saw Aramaic language and Chaldean tribes reshape the demographic landscape, Assyria was poised for a dramatic resurgence. The superpower, the Neo-Assyrian Empire, 911-609 BCE. The Neo-Assyrian Empire was built on a foundation of ruthless military innovation and state terror. Kings like Tiglath-Pileser III created a professional army and instituted a policy of mass deportation to crush regional identities. At its peak under kings such as Sargon II, Sennacherib, and Ashurbanipal, the empire stretched from the Persian Gulf to Egypt and Anatolia. Ashurbanipal assembled the Great Library at Nineveh, preserving for posterity the literary and scientific knowledge of Mesopotamia. Yet, the very brutality that built the empire ensured its downfall. The deep-seated hatred of Assyrian rule led to a massive rebellion. In 612 BCE, a coalition of Babylonians, led by the Chaldean Nabopolassar, and Medes, an Iranian people, sacked the magnificent capital of Nineveh, wiping the Assyrian Empire from the map. The last flowering, the Neo-Babylonian Empire, 626-539 BCE. With Assyria gone, the Chaldean dynasty in Babylon enjoyed a final glorious period of independence. Its zenith came under Nebuchadnezzar II, 605-562 BCE, who turned Babylon into the most magnificent city of the ancient world, famed for its Ishtar Gate and the legendary Hanging Gardens. It was also under his rule that the Kingdom of Judah was crushed, Jerusalem destroyed, and its population deported to Babylon in the events known as the Babylonian Captivity. However, the empire declined rapidly after his death. The priesthood grew alienated from the last king, Nabonidus, creating internal instability. The stage was set for a new power from the east. The rise of Persia and the end of an era. While Babylon was preoccupied with its own affairs, Cyrus the Great was forging the Achaemenid Persian Empire, having conquered the Medes and the Lydians. In 539 BCE, Cyrus marched on Babylon. In a brilliant tactical move, his army diverted the Euphrates River and entered the city under its walls, capturing it virtually without a fight. Cyrus's policy of tolerance, respecting local gods and customs, and allowing deported peoples like the Jews to return home, stood in stark contrast to the Assyrian method and ensured a smooth transition of power. The fall of Babylon marked a profound historical turning point. The age of independent Mesopotamian empires was over. The cradle of civilization was now the heartland of a new world-spanning order, the Persian Empire. The legacy of the Sumerians, Akkadians, and Babylonians, their writing, their laws, their architectural and administrative models, did not die, but was absorbed and passed on, forming the bedrock upon which all subsequent Western and Middle Eastern civilizations would be built. The rise of an empire, a history of Persia from its origins to the Achaemenid zenith. The fall of the Neo-Babylonian Empire in 539 BCE did not signal an end to civilization, but a new beginning. From the Iranian plateau arose a power that would synthesize the achievements of all the ancient Middle Eastern empires that preceded it, Sumerian, Babylonian, Assyrian, and forge them into the world's first true superpower. This is the history of Persia, a people who progressed from obscure tribesmen to the masters of a vast domain stretching from the Aegean Sea to the Indus River. The foundations, Indo-European migrations and the Elamite predecessors, c. 2850 BCE. Long before the name Persia inspired awe, the Iranian plateau was home to ancient civilizations and new arrivals. Elam. In the southwestern region, modern-day Khuzestan, the Kingdom of Elam existed as a constant rival to Mesopotamian powers. With its capital at Susa, Elam was a sophisticated, non-Indo-European civilization with its own language and script. It frequently clashed with and was conquered by Sumer, Akkad, and Ur, but often reasserted its independence. The Elamites were a formidable power, responsible for sacking Ur in 2004 BCE and later contesting control of Babylonia with Assyria. The Indo-European arrival. Sometime around 2000 to 1000 BCE, waves of Indo-European pastoralists, known as the Iranians, migrated onto the plateau from the north. They split into two major groups. The Medes, Madai in Old Persian, settled in the northwestern region, with their heartland around Ecbatana, modern Hamadan. The Persians, Parsa in Old Persian, settled further south in the region of Parsa, modern Fars, from which the name Persia derives. They were initially subordinate to the Elamite kingdom, and later to the Medes. For centuries, these groups lived as a patchwork of tribes, occasionally mentioned in the annals of their powerful neighbors, particularly the Assyrians, who launched punitive raids into the Zagros Mountains. The first Iranian kingdom, the Median Empire, c. 678-550 BCE. The Medes were the first of the Iranian peoples to coalesce into a unified kingdom. United under a ruler named Deioces, and later his son Phraortes, the Medes began to challenge Assyrian dominance. The pivotal moment came during the reign of Cyaxares, Cinna 625-585 BCE. A brilliant military reorganizer, Cyaxares forged a powerful standing army. Seeing the weakness of the decaying Assyrian Empire, he made a fateful alliance with Nabopolassar, the Chaldean king of Babylon. In a series of coordinated campaigns, the Medo-Babylonian alliance systematically dismantled the Assyrian state. The crowning achievement was the brutal sack of Nineveh, the Assyrian capital, in 612 BCE. The Median Empire now stretched across much of modern-day Iran, eastern Anatolia, and parts of the former Assyrian territories. The Persians, to their south, were vassals of this Median kingdom. The stage was set for a dramatic reversal of fortunes. The Achaemenid Revolution, Cyrus the Great, c. 550-530 BCE. In 559 BCE, a Persian noble from the Achaemenid clan named Cyrus II ascended the throne of the vassal state of Anshan in Parsa. A man of immense ambition and charisma, he rallied the Persian tribes and, in 550 BCE, revolted against his Median overlord, King Astyages. In a stunning upset, Astyages' army defected, and Cyrus captured the Median capital of Ecbatana, effectively merging the Median and Persian empires into a single state. Cyrus was not content. He had a new vision of empire, inclusive, tolerant, and vast. 1. The conquest of Lydia, c. 547 BCE. Cyrus marched west to confront the wealthy King Croesus of Lydia in Anatolia. He defeated Croesus at the Battle of Pteria, pursued him to his capital at Sardis, and captured it, bringing all of Anatolia, including the Greek city-states on the coast, under his control. 2. The conquest of Babylon, 539 BCE. This was Cyrus's masterstroke. The Neo-Babylonian Empire under Nabonidus was internally divided. Cyrus portrayed himself not as a conqueror, but a liberator. In a brilliant military maneuver, his army diverted the Euphrates River and marched into Babylon under its walls, taking the city without a major battle. The famous Cyrus Cylinder, often called the First Charter of Human Rights, records his policy of restoring displaced peoples and their gods to their homelands, a direct reference to his edict allowing the Jewish exiles to return to Jerusalem. Cyrus founded a new imperial capital at Pasargadae, a symbol of his new multicultural empire. He died fighting on the eastern frontier, but he had forged an empire larger and more sophisticated than any before it. Consolidation and expansion. Cambyses II and Darius the Great. c. 530–486 BCE. Cyrus's son Cambyses II continued his father's work by adding Egypt to the empire after the Battle of Pelusium in 525 BCE. However, his death triggered a crisis of succession, with a Magian usurper named Gaumata seizing the throne. The empire was saved by a group of 7 noble conspirators led by Darius I, a distant relative of the royal line. After restoring Achaemenid control, Darius embarked on a reign that would define the imperial structure for centuries. Administrative genius. Darius divided the massive empire into 30 manageable provinces called satrapies. Each was ruled by a governor, a satrap, who collected taxes, managed law and order, and commanded local militias, but was watched over by a royal secretary and a military commander who reported directly to the king, creating a system of checks and balances. Infrastructure. He built the Royal Road, a 500-mile courier route from Susa to Sardis with relay stations, allowing information and troops to move with unprecedented speed. He also completed a canal linking the Nile to the Red Sea, a precursor to the Suez. Military campaigns. Darius expanded the empire to its greatest extent, pushing into the Indus Valley and attempting to conquer Greece. This campaign culminated in the Battle of Marathon in 490 BCE, where the Athenians famously repelled the Persian invasion force. Symbolic capital. He built the magnificent ceremonial capital of Persepolis, whose relief-covered terraces depicted all the diverse peoples of the empire bringing tribute to the King of Kings. Clash with the West and imperial zenith. Xerxes I and his successors. CT 486–404 BCE. Darius's son, Xerxes I, sought to avenge his father's defeat at Marathon and complete the subjugation of Greece. He led a colossal invasion force by land and sea in 480 BCE. Despite initial successes, including the bloody Battle of Thermopylae, his navy was decisively defeated at the Battle of Salamis. The following year, the Persian army was defeated at the Battle of Plataea, ending the ambition of conquering mainland Greece. While this is often portrayed as the beginning of Persian decline, the empire remained the dominant global power for another 150 years. The great king in Susa or Persepolis was the ultimate arbiter of world affairs, fabulously wealthy, and commander of armies drawn from over 36 nations. The 5th century BCE was a period of consolidation, internal building, and continued, though less expansive, diplomacy and warfare with the Greeks. The Long Sunset, Decline and Fall to Alexander, c. 404–330 BCE. The 4th century BCE saw the Achaemenid Empire weaken from within. A series of palace intrigues, coups, and assassinations led to short, unstable reigns. The immense wealth of the empire bred corruption, and satraps began to act with increasing autonomy. At the same time, a new power was rising in the west. Philip II of Macedon unified Greece and planned an invasion of Persia. His son, Alexander the Great, would execute this plan with devastating effect. Between 334 and 330 BCE, Alexander invaded the empire. He defeated the satrapal armies at the Granicus River, shattered a massive force led by King Darius III at Issus, and finally delivered the coup de grace at Gaugamela. Darius III was murdered by his own satrap, Bessus, and Alexander marched uncontested into the great Persian capitals of Babylon, Susa, and Persepolis. He symbolically burned the palace at Persepolis, marking the end of the Achaemenid Persian Empire. Conclusion: the Persian legacy. The Achaemenid Empire was the culmination of 2,500 years of ancient Middle Eastern history. It took the imperial model pioneered by the Assyrians and replaced its core principle of terror with one of tolerance and integration. By respecting local customs, religions, and administrative structures, the Persians created a stable, durable state that facilitated unprecedented levels of trade and cultural exchange from India to Egypt. Their innovations in administration, infrastructure, and finance became the template for every empire that followed, from Alexander's own Hellenistic kingdoms to the Romans and beyond. For a fleeting moment, under the King of Kings, most of the known world was united under a single, visionary government, leaving a legacy of imperial grandeur that would echo through the ages.